You've had an absolutely incredible day of eating. You've stuck to your macros, your calories, everything is on point. But then when you go to step on the weighing scales the next day, your weight is up. There is nothing more frustrating than this. And what I want to talk to you about is why that can happen and why it's not something to be absolutely terrified of. So there are 1,000,001 things that can dictate our weight when it comes to the next morning. Now, I do recommend our clients weigh themselves in the morning before they've actually put food into their system. So we're working off their naked body weight, okay? That's the recommendation that I would make. Now, fat loss is not linear. It never will be. I would love it if we lived in a world where if you tick all of the boxes, you hit your steps, your macros are on point, your workouts, all of these things are absolutely ticking a box. If the weighing scales literally went down in that beautiful diagonal line, but it's never going to happen. That is not real life. We're talking about the physiology of the human body, and 9 times out of 10, it will just be water retention. And these are the kind of things that you want to be able to look out for, but also mentally not attach so much to what the reading on the weighing scale says, because if it's only a tiny blip so we work in kilograms, okay, that's what we do. It also translates well when you're lifting weights, so you can understand kilograms very well. But if your weight's going up, let's say you weighed 80 kgs yesterday and then you step on the weighing scales this morning and it says 80.2, that's 200 grams, which for the record is fuck all. That is the reality. It is absolutely nothing. The contents of a tin of tuna is 200 grams. That's all that the weighing scales have shifted by. And what you want to think about here as well is mentally, if you stepped on the weighing scales and it showed 200 grams down, you would be really happy with that. From yesterday to today, you would think I'm really, really happy. But when it goes up by 200 grams, you are miserable as sin, thinking that you've derailed, something's gone wrong, you know what, I'm going to hit the fuck it button, this is not working, I don't have a clue what's going on here, right? That is the wrong mentality. So what I want to do is break down the number of reasons, because there are so many reasons, and I'm just going to try and remember these all off the top of my head. So some of them will even get forgotten about as well. But some of the things that can cause that. So a great example is carbohydrates. This is also one of the reasons why we do not cut out carbohydrates as women, because all you are doing is creating an artificial setback in the weighing scale. So for every 1 gram of carbohydrates that we consume, we are likely to hold on to 4 to 5 grams of water retention. So if you take something like pasta and you cook that pasta, when you then go to weigh it out once it's cooked, it is going to weigh more because it's now absorbed the water that you cook it in. It makes sense, doesn't it? When you think about a shell of pasta, when it's dry, naturally it weighs a lot less than once it's been cooked in water and it's soaked all of that water up. That's what we're talking about. And that's what then goes into your stomach, and naturally it's going to weigh more at that point. So all carbohydrates do the same thing, where we are going to hold on to water retention. So it may well just be that you have increased your carbohydrates from one day to the next day. Again, not necessarily a bad thing, because you might still be within your macros, but you might have just had a little bit more. And then that is going to show up on the weighing scales the next day. It might be as simple as you've had your dinner 1 hour later. 1 hour later than you would normally have your dinner. And again, when you then get up in the morning, let's say you weigh yourself at 7 a.m., but that food is still going to be in your system and potentially still processing, digesting. So because you ate an hour later, again, that could show up on the weighing scales the next morning. Or if you had the carbohydrates a bit later, again, you've got both sides of the spectrum. You've got the water retention from the carbohydrates and the fact that the food might not have fully processed and be ready to come out of your system yet, by the time you step on the scales the next morning. Even simple things like, so we've just been experiencing a heat wave. This is another thing where we are pushing increased hydration onto our clients. Now, water does weigh something. So when we're saying you need to increase the amount of liquid that is passing through your body to keep you hydrated, it does weigh something. And what also happens when the weather gets extremely hot, your body is going to hold on to more water because it is needing that to keep itself hydrated. So again, your water retention might show up on the weighing scales as a result of the extra heat. If you have saltier foods, this is another one. If you have more salty foods the day before, again, that can cause water retention. So note what I'm saying here though. Water retention, not body fat. Body fat is actually the piece of the puzzle that we want to see declining on the weighing scales. Water retention is going to come and go. Another thing that can cause a big fluctuation on the weighing scales, which is specifically why we ask our clients to weigh themselves every single morning so that they can start to learn their physical anatomy, having your monthly cycle as a woman. Every single time our cycle is due, and this only stands for the women who have an organic cycle. So if you're on the pill and actually you're not having a monthly bleed, you are artificially having hormones put inside of you so that actually you won't see the same fluctuations on the weighing scales as somebody that is not doing that. You might be on the Mirena coil versus the copper coil. The copper coil has no hormones in it, so you will have a natural cycle. So this is another thing where your natural cycle, you probably are. So if I take mine as an example, 2 or 3 days before I'm due to actually start bleeding, I will see my weight go up on the weighing scales. But I know this because I track the data every single month. So I've learned that about my own body. Now, my body holds on to that water weight, I would say probably a little bit longer than the average woman that I coach inside of the program. Yay for me. It's amazing. Not. But usually as the bleeding is starting to subside, this is where the water retention will also start to drop away again. And the fruits of your labor from being in that deficit on your period will then start to reveal themselves. But what it can do is skew the data for 1 week out of the month. And that is something that we coach our clients to understand so that they can learn what's happening to their body. So then when their cycle is due every month and the water weight spikes, they no longer feel the need to freak out and panic because they understand what's happening to their body because it happened last month, it happened the month before that. And when you can learn your body, because every woman is different here, every single woman's cycle, some are heavier, some are lighter, some might not show as much of an impact as others. But what we coach inside of the program as well is a couple of options, because your body is burning calories at an increased rate while your cycle is taking place, while you are actually physically having a period. And the reason for that is because your body is actually doing an additional job. So what we say is during the heaviest points of your cycle, if you want an extra couple of 100 calories, you can take them. Be aware it can impact the water retention on the scales again, but it will subside. If that's the difference between you being able to stifle those cravings or not, that's a good thing. Because if you hit the fuck it button, guess what's going to happen? The weight is going to go on, and we obviously want to avoid that. But the alternative is for those who are willing to absolutely grit their teeth and just grin and bear the deficit, even when it feels like it's so much harder, the benefits they will see on the weighing scales out the back end will be even better than a normal week when they are not on their period. So it's just something that happens to the female anatomy, and it's something that we want to learn for ourselves, and it's a huge educational piece that we teach our clients. It is really, really important for us to make sure that we know our own cycle and how our water retention does become affected throughout the month. Bit harder for perimenopausal women, because they don't necessarily have a monthly cycle all of the time anymore. But again, taking their daily weight is a good indication of where they're at. So another thing that can impact, so we've got marathon trainers inside of the program. We also have women who do like to run, and we teach strength training and pushing heavy weights. This is another thing that can impact your water retention the next day. So while your body is going into active recovery mode while you sleep, this is another thing that can cause the weights to do a slight blip on the weighing scales the next day. So even understanding, right, I trained last night, and then looking at the weight the next morning to go, that could be the causation of it. What we actually want to do, so here is an example of my incredible client, Mandy. Mandy's graph, as you can see, demonstrates what long-term fat loss looks like. Her graph is not a beautiful diagonal straight line with absolutely no blips. You can see December. Mandy pretty much all but stalled in December. Obviously, I kind of feel like that is quite explainable given the nature of celebrations, what we do in December. There's probably likely to be work nights out where everybody is going out, drinking, having a good time. We've got Christmas Day. We've also then got New Year's Eve. Like, there's all of these things that you have to take into consideration. So you can see that on this graph, how Mandy's results have almost gone on a bit of a flat line through December. But there have also been spikes, because guess what? Mandy has a birthday. Mandy has social occasions throughout her week. Now, it's not necessarily an increase in fat, but an increase in water weight. Because in order for you to put on a pound of fat, you need, and this is if you actually did no movement whatsoever and you were pretty much bedbound, you'd need to be in a surplus of over 2,500 calories a week. That's what you would need to be in to put on a pound of fat. To actually break that down into real life, it would be closer to 7,000 extra calories in that week in order to put on the pound of fat, including the fact that you probably are moving throughout the week. You are getting steps in, you are doing other things. So what we want you to understand is the difference between water retention and body fat. But another consideration here is, and again, why I ask all of the women inside of Strong Hurt to weigh themselves every single day. Because what I can do by seeing that data, if their weight is dropping beautifully Monday to Friday, and this is real life, this happens all the time, but Monday through Friday, their weight is dropping really nicely. 100 grams, 200 grams, 300 grams, 400 grams. It's just moving in the right direction. And then suddenly, on a Saturday, Sunday morning, their weight has suddenly spiked up by 1 kilogram and their nutrition log is not reflecting that. That's when I immediately know to ask the question, so what happened on Saturday night then? Because your weight spiked, your nutrition log does not reflect this. We're not going to see through exercise, we might see it with a period, okay? That's the one caveat. If they are due on their period, that would caveat the whole thing I'm saying. But if they're not due on their cycle and they're saying their nutrition was bang on, their carbohydrates are higher, even if they trained the day before any of this, I would be calling bullshit at that point. I would categorically be saying your weight has not spiked by 1 kilo plus just because you trained yesterday, just because the weather is hot outside, just because you had carbohydrates an hour later. That is too much of a dramatic increase. It's water retention because they did something. They have gone way over their calories that day, and that is what has caused the spike in the weighing scale. So there are a number of reasons for little blips, but what we want to do is be really honest and mindful about the big blips where we're going, yeah, you know what, actually I had a takeaway. You know what, I just decided to have a takeaway. Or, you know what, it was my Auntie Susan's, Helen's friend's, Budgie's birthday. So, you know what, sue me, I went. And it's fine if people are honest, because like Mandy's graph shows, that's her fat loss over over the course of like more than 12 months. Do you know what I mean? That's what long-term sustainable fat loss looks like. That is over 40 pounds of fat loss gone in that kind of 14-month period of time. That's what we're talking about. Now, Mandy has had social occasions because guess what? To make her do over a year's worth of coaching with no respite, with no social occasions, how shit would that be for her? Whereas actually, this is what sustainable results actually look like for somebody that's got a larger journey to go on, and actually it's not going to happen overnight, and this is realistic and what realistic coaching looks like. So I just wanted to give some insight as to why the weighing scales can show a temporary blip and why it's unrealistic to expect them to go beautifully in the same trajectory every single day. But it is also worth knowing the difference between mini little blips day to day and a massive spike. That's where we have to get really, really fucking honest with ourselves.